Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Weekend Morning Brew Show, Saturday edition. I'm Nighthawk, one of your hosts. We'll have Dennis and G coming on here pretty soon. In the meantime, I'm going to go over a few things that we normally do to stop all the bots and the censorship out there, the disclaimers and everything. So let's go ahead and get that out of the way. This channel may use some copyrighted material without specific authorization of the owners, but contents it falls under the Fair Use Act, copyright 1976. Copyright disclaimer is Nighthawk High Strangeness podcast channel and all podcasts do declare fair use of any and all content, that's any and all content, to be used for the sole purposes of informing you, the viewing family, of information for educational purposes, general knowledge, criticism, commentary, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, research, and parody. We love parody. Okay, under the Fair Use Act of 1976, subsection 17, section 17, subsection 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Alrighty. Now, we use the Splice app for all of our advertising needs and advertising music, so there's obviously no claims on that. That being said, we are all good on the disclaimers. Now, if you can, please like, heart, and share your favorite podcast out and the channel out, and follow, like, and subscribe. We're trying to get our subscribership up because these bots keep on unsubscribing people. So make sure when you're coming on, you check to make sure you're still subscribed. And secondly, hit that bell notification up there on the right-hand corner and click on all notifications so you'll be notified of all the lives that we have. And we primarily on this channel do live broadcasts. We don't hardly ever do a pre-recorded broadcast. So everything is firsthand, fresh right to you. Okay? So that being said, let me see here. Of course, we go through all the pretty stuff. All right, now breaking news. I found out this morning on Next News Network, Redacted News, and Fox News that it was reported that assassination attempt on Vladimir Putin actually failed, that he barely escaped with his life. So, that being said, no matter who the life is, and granted, people like Vladimir Putin do a lot of bad stuff. Look at our own past presidents. They've done a lot of bad stuff too. But it's still a life, okay, and it's a soul, okay. And instead of going around killing people and damning their souls, why don't we try to rescue those people, reach out to those people, and try to save a soul? Is that a concept we've never thought of? Hmm.
Very interesting. Mhm.
Good morning, Dennis. How are you, brother?
All right, how's everything, my friend?
I'm doing okay. I had a revelation last night. That's why I started out this broadcast with this. Um, and it's true. It's a concept that we never really even consider, rescuing a soul instead of damning it. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Well,
anyways,
if you are a sentient being, I believe you have a soul. To a certain extent, you are a living soul. You're different than a rock or a grain of sand. You have some substance to you. You know.
mhm,
And that I think is very important that we need to remember that even with some of these so-called alien species, certainly they are some type of a living soul, you know. Uh, yeah, they were made by a creator, by our creator. And so they're made in a mold, no matter what they may look like or may resemble. They may, you
yeah,
know, we got to consider they have a soul too, perhaps. Although they may not be spiritually consonant of their soul, they may have a different concept of things than we do, or they may have a different relationship with their creator than we do, or see things differently. We have to take that into
mhm,
account too, just like all the many different religions in this world. You know. I was going, before we get started into a lot of this stuff, I thought I would share an interesting case um, that I'm working on right now. I thought you might be interested in listening, and maybe the
okay,
listeners out there might be interested in it. It's very strange. It's got to be one of the strangest ones I've worked in quite a while. And of course, I can't divulge any identities on this, but this guy supposedly, well, he had this happen to him. He contacted me about it, and here's his story. It's very strange, and it happened a few days ago. This is not something from years ago. This happened a few days ago, and said that he was in his kitchen and he was getting ready to boil some corn on the cob. You boil it, put it in the pot, and boil it.
mhm,
To eat or whatever. And whatever the story is on that. And he had the water and he had already boiling, he was watching it. And he gets a phone call on his landline. And so he said he just automatically, you do this sometimes. I'm guilty of it as well. You just grab the phone up and you don't look at the ID. You grab the phone up and say hello, which is what he did. And he said, Mr. Carl, on the other end of that line was something that I don't think was human. He said it was whispering, but it didn't sound human. He said it sounded honest to God, it's like hissing that a cat or a snake might make. But it was whispering, and he said it was words I didn't understand. And he said, I don't know if it was another language or what. He said, I couldn't, but it was whispering. It was low whispering, like with a hissing whisper. And he said, well, what the heck is this? What do you want? And all of a sudden the line went dead. And he hung the phone up. He said, that's when he looked at the caller ID and it said unknown. Okay. And that's not the end of the story. He said, I went back to the kitchen and I was watching the pot. You got to watch your pot, don't boil over or whatever. He said, I was watching my pot and said, all of a sudden, the strangest thing came over me. He said, the weirdest feeling I think I've ever had. He said, I felt like I was still in my kitchen, but I could see myself. I was like I was out of my body, but I wasn't out of my body. He said, I could still feel, so I feel the heat from the stove, everything. But he said, I felt very displaced. I said that was the only way he could describe it. Is like he wasn't there. And he said, all of a sudden, Mr. Carroll, the weirdest feeling came over me, and I felt that without a doubt I had to stick my hand down in that boiling water. And he said, I don't know why I would have done. I'm a sensible person. I would never do something stupid like that. But I felt like I was driven to do it. He said, I felt like I couldn't stop myself from actually sticking my hand down in that boiling water. He said, I had to go in the next room. So I finally got a hold of myself and went in the next room till I got feeling different and came back because I was scared I was going to stick my hand in that boiling pot of water.
Wow.
And I said, the interesting thing about this story, William, is that phone call. Was that some kind of a spell that was cast? Was that some kind of a subliminal thing going on here? Was that reptilian? It sounded very reptilian to me. That triggered this in that man. And he said, he said, I feel fine now, but he said it was the weird. He said it was maybe the whole thing was 10 minutes. And he got back to feeling fine. He said, but I have never ever, he said, I've never thought about hurting myself like that. And it just wanted me. It's just like something, he said, something had him by the arm trying to stick his hand down in that boiling water. Now, that's a freaky story.
Yeah. It sounds to me like it was because I have done that in the past, in my dark past. I've casted like curses and stuff over the phone to people where you repeat the incantation over and over again. And if the person hears the incantation 3 times, that curse will stick. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So because we always did things in 3s. Okay. And what happens is if that person disconnects that conversation or that person repeating the curse over and over again, in old dialect, they break that bond and they're only affected temporarily. So if he had,
that's what I told the guy, William. I said this sounds very much like some type of a spell casting of some sort. And I told him, I said, from now on, look before you pick the phone up, because once he picked that phone up, he made, and just like what you're saying, he made that connection, just like opening your door. You're letting something in, So I thought I'd tell people about that, to warn you. Even answering your phone, be very careful what you're doing here,
Yeah, I never answer the phone when it comes up unknown. I hardly even answer the phone if it comes up verified, because of a number I don't know and don't recognize. So and I know a lot of people call me, that know me from podcasting and stuff. And I'm sorry, but if I don't recognize the phone number, I don't pick it up. I just don't.
Yeah.
I would prefer somebody text me first and then tell me, hey, I'm calling. Do you mind? Can you pick up, please? That way I know it's them. So
That's a smart thing to do, yeah. Well, with all these telemarketing and all this crap, I very rarely answer my phone that way, just like you, unless it's somebody I absolutely know, and I am
yeah.
expecting that call. I deal with a lot of clients, in demonic consultations and stuff. I have to give people my phone number in order to talk with them. But I know when they're going to call. I set up a time. I'm looking for them, just like an appointment thing.
Hmm. Yep. Yep. I agree. Yep.
But that was a very strange story, and I said that it didn't sound right. It sounded, there is, and I don't know, what I'm about to talk about here. In spell casting, they say there is a serpent language that some of these people
Hmm.
use,
Yeah.
and it does
Well, yeah.
sound like snake hissing. You know,
Yeah. That's the old dialect that I'm talking about. It is almost like a reptilian sounding hyphenated words. So yeah, a lot of elongated speech is what it is. So
yeah. Well, there again, there's that demonic reptilian connection, isn't it? You know,
yeah.
uh, a strong connection, definitely. Very,
Well,
very strange.
you can almost link the language to the old Sumerian language from the Sumerian text. It's kind of the gutturalizations and speech
It's
pattern of kind of like the
kind
same
of a
thing.
sing song kind of a language that
Right. Right.
yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Only
Yeah.
because um, certain sounds mean more during the incantation or the curse process than the actual verbiage does. Okay, so certain
Right.
sounds you hear will activate it too, and that's why it's done that way. So, and I
But
probably have really
there
opened
have
a
been
can of
in the
worms.
past,
So
William. There have been curses cast with paper. Letters that are sent. M.R. James wrote a
oh
very famous story about that called "Casting the Runes," where you take this piece of
yeah,
paper, you take the curse. You know,
yeah.
people don't
Well,
take
I mean,
don't
curses
take
can be
things from strangers.
yeah, curses can be so many different things. It could be a rock that you find in your yard that just seems out of place. It
Mm-hmm.
could be it could be anything. It could be a certain like hieroglyphic mark on your house that you don't see every day because you walk past and just don't look. But that
Well,
one day you could.
I remember a story about a farmer. He found a rock. Since you mentioned that, it jogged my memory. He found a rock out in the field. He didn't, of course, he being a farmer, he knew all the rocks, but he had to move them. And he said he found this rock and he picked it up, and there was a symbol on the bottom of it. He knew he had a curse put on it. The farmland.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
Yep. That's why a lot of the old world farmers put the stars on their barns and stuff and on their
Hmm.
property to ward off evil. And some people may want to continue doing that to this day because evil's all around us. Evil's everywhere, and you don't want to give into it. I mean, trust me. I mean, I lived that life. You don't want to.
Hmm.
As a young child and a young man growing up, you don't want that lifestyle. It's no good. All
Dark,
it does is
dark
it makes
stuff.
you bitter and angry. Yeah, it makes you bitter and angry all the time. So you don't want it. But
If you get into that darkness that much, William, and you know what I'm about to say here, I'm sure you do. It changes you. It fills you with hatred and darkness for your fellow man, and for and you and it changes your whole mind perspective, and it's not good. When you take that kind of a lifestyle on. You know.
right, right, yeah. I want to say a special good morning this morning to my brother Juno. You know, he's out there in New Mexico And I really wish I could be out there joining him, man, because the man is he's a very, very extraordinary brother of mine, and Jen, I wish you all the best, my dear brother. You hang in there strong, and you be strong, and you continue talking to me on the emails and stuff, and everything's going to be fine, my brother. And Yolanda Alvarado, thank you very much, Rosie, for being here. It means a lot to me. Brandy from Blondes and Booze, thank you for being here.
Hey,
Robbie
Brandy.
from Robbie's here from DA. Good to see you, Robbie. And I think DA might even be in here. I don't know. It might be too early for DA. So
You never know when he
Tombstone's
might
in
be
here.
lurking around
Yeah,
somewhere. You never know.
yeah. Ozzy Sue's in here. Tombstone. You know, Derek Galloway. Thank you for being here, Derek. And Scott, good to see you, brother. Good to see you. And I'm sorry if I miss anybody. I want to, say hello to my lovely wife Tracy too, because I know she's listening. So, but yeah, it's really something when you're talking curses and stuff. It's kind of ironic because I was the topic that I wanted to discuss this morning is the
Hmm.
the curse of the werewolf, the
Oh yeah.
lycanthrope process, and people need to understand that there is a difference between a werewolf and a wolf man.
Hmm.
And I think
Big difference.
that there's a lot of confusion between the two because they assume that werewolves are what wolfmen are. You're half man, half wolf, and that's not. I'm sorry, but that's not the case. Any type of old world gypsy people will tell you that the curse of the werewolf that they used to put out would curse a man to becoming a wolf. Okay. And this is a wolf that is astronomically huge. Okay. But transforms back to a man almost like a demonic possession. Okay. A werewolf, whereas if you're bitten by a werewolf, you're turned into a werewolf. You can hunt and run on 2 and 4 legs, but for the most of the time, a werewolf is just a huge, huge wolf.
Wolf. Yeah.
Yeah,
Four-legged wolf. Yeah.
right.
Well,
So
that
I
was the beast. The beast of Gavadan. Was supposed to be that type of a werewolf. It had, it ran on four legs. Um, when you talk about the werewolf, you've got to look at three different aspects of the werewolf, like you're touching upon here: the cursed, the magical or demonic type thing, and then there is the one that's handed down through generations, a generational kind of curse. Um, where a certain family, and there are supposed to be certain families in this world that carry this curse from generation to generation because some ancestor way back in time screwed up things pretty bad. Either made a deal with the wrong people or something like that went down. But now, just like the curse we're talking about earlier, a curse can be put on someone to transform them into this, and these are usually the wolf man type of an animal.
mm,
He's usually got that half man, half wolf kind of a thing. Very much like
right.
the dog man. Very much like the dog man that you hear about. But now that's sort of a
Mm.
magical curse that's put on him and not one that's handed down through the DNA kind of thing.
Right.
And then, of course, you got
With one
the
difference,
supernatural werewolf. Go ahead.
but with one difference though, the dog man has a tail, whereas the wolf man would not have a
The, the,
tail, and the
would not
ears
have a
of the
tail.
wolf man would be to the side.
Hmm.
So
It looks more like a wolf, more per se than a dog. Dogs have different characteristics of wolves.
right.
But here's the most interesting thing that sets the dog man apart from the wolf man, and that's the fact that the dog man is always a dog man, 24/7. He doesn't turn back into anything. He stays that way. That's his common shape. Whereas in the wolf man, in certain times of this curse is upon him, he becomes that wolf man. He goes back to being looking very human in that attribute. But here's the interesting thing, William, that is always, and this is one of my favorite supernatural things, the werewolf. The thing that really interests me is no matter what form he takes, he is still super animal with the mind of a man. That sets him apart, I think, from Dogman, because I don't think Dogman has the mind of a man, okay, per se. He's more animalistic. This thing that you're dealing with, therefore, is incredibly dangerous because it has the strength and the stamina and endurance of an animal, but it has the mind and intelligence of a man. That's the most that would be one of the most dangerous creatures walking around that you could face. You know?
Sounds like a politician.
Yeah. But that's another story. That's another lower class of things there. But anyway, much lower. Matter of fact, I'd rather hang out with werewolves. But anyway, the interesting thing to me, the most interesting aspect of a supernatural werewolf is the dark magic that gets him into this thing. Puts on the pelt, whichever story you believe, and transforms into this thing. I don't know if you've ever read too much about that very famous case Ed and Lorraine Warren had with a guy who believed he was suffering from lycanthropy. He believed just certain times he would turn into a werewolf. This guy actually, William, and I've seen pictures of him. This guy actually almost took on this form. He was like a wolf man, kind of an aspect of him. He wasn't like a full-blown werewolf. But he took on the attributes of this animal. I mean, his face would change. Hair would stick out as fangs. The whole works. And he even tore. This is the interesting part. They had him in a jail cell. And he tore an iron door off the jail cell and got out. Think about this a minute. Now, people can do things with a certain amount of adrenaline rush. But, I mean, the mind over the matter thing, that's the interesting part about this, you know?
Right. Exactly. Now, I do want to make this very, very clear too, though, that the werewolf and the wolf man and the dog men are all separate entities by themselves. Okay, different classifications, as you would say, but do not misconstrue the skinwalker as a werewolf or a wolf man, or even a dog man. Don't make that mistake, because you're talking a whole different breed of animal, and one that I know very, very well. Okay.
And the skinwalker, William, the interesting thing about the skinwalker, it's not limited to one animal.
Right.
You know, it can take on other forms. You know, whereas in the werewolf, it's just a werewolf. I mean, he can only be a wolf. He can't assume any other form other than that of a man. You know.
Yep.
To me, that's always what set it apart for the skinwalker, the werewolf thing, because that's a very important attribute that we're talking about here.
Right.
Because that's shape shifting, voluntarily shape shifting. Per se, you know, you could become a supposedly a crow or a coyote or whatever the situation. You're that's what, and by the way, there's a term for that. It's called transmortification. In other words, you completely change what you are into something else.
Yep.
Dark
now,
magic.
Derek had a question. Yeah, Derek had a question for you, Dennis, down below there.
I've heard of the demon Mizan Kichibuchi. I think it's a Japanese type thing, is it not? But it might be tied in with a lot of these novel comics and stuff that you read about, these demon hunter things and all that. But that sounds familiar.
Good morning, North Alabama Cryptid. Good to see you, David. Good to see you on here, brother. Crystal, good morning. Good morning to you there. Good morning. Well, Juno, brother, you don't have to tell me you appreciate that, man. I know you do, man. You know, that's what blood's all about, man. So blood takes care of blood, man. So no problem, my brother. But yeah, it's just I saw a lot of stuff going around on the internet, on social media, about questioning what's the difference between a dog man and a werewolf. And then some of the responses I saw that people were describing a werewolf weren't even a werewolf. They were describing the wolf man. And, you know, just needing to know the separate categories of each specific uh, individual being. You need to educate yourself before you put it out there, because if you don't, and you do the wrong thing or say the wrong thing, and you point somebody in the wrong direction to correct a problem, and it causes more of a problem than helping, you know, then inadvertently you're responsible for the safety of that individual. And I just think that if people would just do their research and their due diligence on trying to figure out everything, and ask your experts and stuff out there, if we have any, you know what I mean? I don't consider myself an expert. I'm just a Native American old man that has done a lot in his lifetime and has dealt with an entire lifetime of paranormal and supernatural experiences and dealt with the dark magic. So,
Well, William, the thing about it is that we've also got to disregard a lot of Hollywood stuff.
can you hear that?
I didn't.
The helicopter's back.
Uh-oh. Well, they buzzed me last week. Okay. It's probably about time to get you down. Anyway, the interesting thing about all this, we've got to disregard a lot of Hollywood stuff. You know, a lot of people are still thinking in the Hollywood mode on some of this stuff. And, you go back, here's what I tell people, and I think you'll back me up on this. You got to go back to folklore and read some of this stuff to understand a lot of where these people are coming from here. You got to go back and study folklore. And this very, very seldom in folklore does it say that if you're bitten by a werewolf and live, you'll become a werewolf. It doesn't say that. That's Hollywood. Okay. That's a lot of Hollywood stuff. But you got people say, oh, yeah, if you get bit by a werewolf, you live, you're going to have a curse. No, that's a different thing altogether. Yeah. And, but it is interesting to note that a lot of these Hollywood writers, and I've said this before, did a lot of good research. They had to do their research and all that. And of course, the silver bullet is supposed, but you can't just, here's the thing about it, you can't just go, hey, I'm going to give me a silver bullet and kill this werewolf. It don't work. That bullet must be blessed. Mm-hmm. And sprinkled with holy water. I mean, it ain't going to work for you, folks. And here's one more thing. When you shoot that bullet, what's going to back it up? What we've always talked about, William, faith.
Faith, yeah.
Faith. Yeah. That's what God's going to do.
And the other thing you need to consider too, though, is that silver needs to be introduced to the blood of the being. Okay.
Yeah.
It needs to interact with the blood, because that silver and that prayer and blessing over the silver bullet is a purification process. And the quickest way to purify yourself of a curse through the blood is putting that silver and that.
It can be a silver dagger. It can be even a silver cane. It can be different. Whatever it is, there's a certain ritual that has to go with that to seal its power in that. But like I say, it's got to have that faith behind it too, or it's not going to work out the way you want it to. Exactly. But the interesting thing about that is another way to get rid of the werewolf is just like you get rid of the vampire. You take the head off, and then burn the body. You can stake it like you do a vampire in very many ways. And here's an interesting thing in folklore, William. The vampire and the werewolf are interchangeable sometimes. People, the lines are blurred between these two supernatural entities to a certain extent. I remember very well in Greek mythology, the Volvalika is considered to be a vampire, and yet it's called a wolf spirit. So there's a tie and a mixture of this stuff going on there in folklore. So that's another aspect you got to look at. What you're dealing with, big time in this, is demonic, without a doubt. It's a demonic
Mm-hmm.
entity. That's what makes it supernatural. And in order for you to
Right.
magically change into a werewolf, you got to sign that contract with the demonic. Sorry, but you do.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. There is always an agreement with the dark forces when you're dealing with a curse. So
Mhm.
that is a given. There's always, and one thing too that you got to remember too, though, is the the significance of the curse is based off of the person doing the curse signing a contract because they don't want to lose the what they have signed the contract for. Okay,
Right.
so they really want that curse to work no matter what, because if it doesn't, then guess what's going to happen? That contract's going to be called.
Yeah. It's
So
gonna come back to haunt you, definitely. And you'll find out just what you really signed up for. Unfortunately,
mhm,
that's in a bad way. But I was just thinking while we're talking about curses. Even God in the Bible cursed several people and made them act like animals. You remember that?
mhm,
Uh, it is a curse. That animal thing is a curse, definitely. And here's the
yep,
thing about it. Okay, let's look at the big picture here, William. If I were to transform tonight into a werewolf, okay, I still got that mind of the man, but I have the body of the beast. And here's the bad thing about it. I'm no longer really human anymore. You
mhm,
know, I'm animal now. I've lost my humanity. Although I may still have the mind, I have lost my physical humanity. That's a bad situation when you think about it. That is a blow spiritually, not only physically, but spiritually as well.
Now, the one thing I think everybody needs to understand too, though, is depending on the strength of the person dealing with the curse or the black magic part of it. I know from doing the skinwalker ceremony that there were times when I would physically take on this shape, but there are more times, more than often, where my spirit left my physical body behind and transformed into the 9 foot tall snarling beast, that didn't stop devouring, and until it came back to the body. Um, because I remember standing above my body and looking down in the beast uh, form at my body and thinking, there's my body, but where am I? And I remembered, looking and seeing myself transformed, okay, during this ceremony. So there are times when we physically transform in the ceremony, but there are stronger points in times when the beast is stronger in the ceremony and comes out more predominant, so you're not physically affected by it, by any harm that bullets or anything could do. Um, that it's more of a supernatural form. Okay, so you're almost, it's almost like an out of body experience.
Well, you
Is
would have to, William, in order to change that
right.
way, you would have to leave your body. Your body can't do that. You would have. So what we're talking about is a spiritual thing going on here. You would
Right.
have to leave your body and take on that other form of a supernatural form, is
Right.
what you're talking about. That's a different process, definitely. So
And
people
that's
got to understand that when you morph into something, it's not just your body changing in that respect. You know.
Yep. Yep. Good
You
morning,
ever heard?
Ward. Good to see you,
You
Blue.
familiar with the boo hag? The
Oh
boo
yeah.
hag is very interesting in the fact that it leaves its skin, and become really what it's
Mm-hmm.
doing is becoming a spiritual creature. It's leaving the physical. It's doing an
Mm-hmm.
out of body thing, but it's leaving the physical thing behind and becoming a supernatural. That's very much like what you're talking about. You have to do that in order to shapeshift, definitely in that respect.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. But
Yeah, it didn't lie,
I
but
remember trying to stand up. Yeah. I remember standing up, as tall as I could in the form, and I remember feeling the ceiling hitting my head, you know, of the
mhm,
house, and thinking to myself, I'm definitely not me. So
mhm,
and then after that, the beast takes over, and then next thing you know, you're waking up, laying next to the fire, and
mhm.
you know, the rest is history.
That's very much like in voodoo, William, when they allow these spirits to ride them, as they say, to take over, take control of them. These people become completely different things. I mean, these spirits come in; they have completely different personalities and reactions to it. Whenever the spiritual part leaves the body, and that's why I say it's kind of dangerous. Don't do this at home, folks. Okay, do not do this at home. Don't experiment with this because it's very dangerous. Whenever you leave the body, it's sort of like taking a spacewalk without the tether. You don't know if you're going to get back sometimes. Yeah, I mean, you're in a very bad situation. You got to think about that. Dangerous, very dangerous,
Yep.
especially if you don't know what you're doing. If you're experimenting, playing around with it, you could end up in a very bad situation. And here's the interesting thing: I have seen people like that, William, in insane asylums and stuff like that. They just sit there staring at the wall, kind of like Michael Myers did in Halloween. They stare at that wall and they don't see anything anymore. They're not there in their body. There's something else in that body. They're not really home anymore. That's a sad state to be in too, my friend. That's a sad state that you're not there anymore. Where are you though? That's an interesting question. If you're not at home, where have you gone? And if you can't ever get back to where you began, that would be a sad situation. That would be a hell to me. That would be a form of a hell, would it not? You couldn't get back to. Well,
Hmm.
Brandy, well, a werewolf have the same aggression as a dog man since it was bitten. Werewolf would really. Here's what I'll say: this between the dog man and the werewolf, dog man might cut you a break and let you go. He might go and leave himself. Werewolf 9 times out of 10 is gonna tear you limb from limb. That's the way that goes. He's not gonna give you a
Yeah.
break. Okay.
Yeah.
Not dog man
And
might
I'll
cut you some slack.
yeah. Let me add to that. Yes, I agree 150% with that, Dennis. What you just said. Dogman might cut you a break, whereas a werewolf won't, because when you're dealing with a dogman, you're dealing with a pack mentality. Okay, whatever the alpha wants to do, the pack will follow. If the alpha and the male and female don't think that you're a threat, then they're not going to bother with you. Okay,
Exactly.
unless they look at you as their next meal. Whereas a werewolf is not a pack animal. Okay, a werewolf
No.
is not a pack animal. Their aggression that they have makes them so aggressive in nature that they can't really get along with other werewolves. Okay, Now they will, if they need to fight a common enemy, but for the most part, they don't. They are soul animals. The werewolves are soulistic. They're single hunters out there looking for their next victim. So
And they are animals or beasts of destruction. That's what they're all about. They're like I say, they won't just jump on you and cut you up a little bit. They will tear you literally into pieces. Just like a wild dog or a wolf pack would do. A pack, but there's a pack. But like he says, they're an individual, and some of the most dangerous wolves are lone wolves. They're dangerous in that respect.
yep.
Uh, but here's the interesting thing, Brandy. In nature, and I've run into bears, I've run into mountain lions, I know all that. Most of the time, these animals don't want to mess with you. Unless, like William said, they feel
Mm-hmm.
threatened or you got them in a corner, or whatever the case, they can't get away from. They would rather leave you alone and walk away most of the time, an animal, unless there's something wrong with them. They're hurt or they've been tortured or something. It depends on what their backstory is. But 9 times out of 10, I've seen this with snakes. I ran into a copperhead the other day. He decided, hey, I'd rather just leave than mess with this guy. Most of the time, animals will cut that break for you if you're not aggressive. They'll do that. But the werewolf would not. He would definitely not.
Yep. And Dennis, I'm gonna cut out for 1 minute. I'll be right back. Okay.
No, that go right ahead. The Zeta werewolf. Are you talking about the alpha wolf kind of werewolf thing or something? Kind of give me a little hint on that, Derek. Exactly what the Zeta is supposed to be? Is that Greek or what? That's interesting. Sounds interesting. Uh, Maybe I know it by a different description. But anyway, the werewolf is a fascinating animal in that respect. But here's the sad part about it. If you're suffering under the curse of a werewolf, if you didn't do anything, you didn't, do any black magic to get in this situation, but somebody either put this curse on you or it's been passed down to you through your family, that's a sad situation because you don't want to deal with it. It's very much like the Wolfman in the old movies. He was always going around saying, I want to die. I don't want to kill anybody anymore. I don't want to be a murderer. I don't want to kill nobody. I'd rather die because that was the curse he was laboring under. That would be a very sad situation. That's a very bad life to have. That would be in the term of curses, that would be a bad curse on someone, definitely. Um, but here's the thing, knowing that if you lived under that curse, that your children would also acquire it. That's bad. That's bad to think about. So that would be a very, very hurtful type of a curse, definitely, to put on somebody. And usually, when that kind of a curse like that was put on the family, it was a revenge type curse. That family had either done something or they considered them to be bad guys or whatever the case, and put this curse on them. Here's the interesting thing about curses, though, and we're going to getting into the occult a little bit here. The interesting thing about curses are whenever you cast a curse, some of it's going to always come back on you. Okay. So if you were to like curse someone with the werewolf thing, you may not be a full blown werewolf because of it, but you will share a little bit in that curse. That's just the way it goes. Because whenever you send the curse out, whatever it may be, whether it be werewolf or anything else, whenever you curse someone, when you send that, you got an attachment to that. You got to remember, you've got a spiritual attachment to that curse or that spell or whatever it is you're doing. And that can be bad because if that attachment to you comes back on you, you can pay a heavy price for what you've done. And really, sometimes you deserve it by doing that to people. Lord MP says, I say what I say because I had an experience with a dog man, a very long and scary one. That's interesting. We'll have to hear about that sometime.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Uh, Skinwalkers and dogmen are completely different. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Man, is a dog man and a werewolf are the same thing? No, not necessarily. No, no. Dog man, like I said, he stays dog man 24/7. That's what he is. The werewolf does not. The werewolf could be your next door neighbor or your Sunday school teacher. You never know it.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you came upon them during the transformation, that'd be the last thing you'd probably ever see. That's
Right.
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 Hit that like button and that bell for us, please. Subscribe and like and share. That's the thing. Share if you care. But yeah, I would be. I'd rather run. Here, put it this way. Okay, I'd rather run into Dog Man than a werewolf. Like I say, you might have a better chance in that respect. If I were going to run into one like that. My very first case I ever investigated, back when I was about 15 years old, was a werewolf sighting. So it's been always been a fascinating subject to me. Matter of fact, where I live, there was a werewolf sighting back in the late 40s and early 50s that became a legend around these parts. And this werewolf was very destructive. It just killed things, just to kill things, sort of, supposedly. It would even kill alley cats and stuff, rip them to shreds. I remember one guy said that they went down the alley and there were alley cats laying everywhere, pieces of them. You couldn't tell which one was which. This thing is a voracious killer, like a shark on land. It's not going to cut you a break. Not the werewolf.
Yeah. Let me, Rosie. The skinwalker is a curse to a point of finding its victim. Okay, that it's supposed to go after. Okay, it's not a curse set forth on the individual that is doing the transformation. Trust me, I've been there. Okay, I can speak very clearly on the subject. I don't have any fear of the subject because I've been there. Okay. So we'll just leave it at that. But yeah, it's a curse to a point for the victim of the transformation, not the
It's
person
usually
doing.
it's usually a matter of revenge, is it not, William? That you're usually getting back at somebody for something that was done.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Either you disrespected the person's family or you disrespected the individual at some point in time to the point where they would want to bring forth the curse of the skinwalker. Okay. And you know, it's how do I want to say this? It takes a very, very cold heart, okay, to purposely and willfully want to destroy another human being. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that being said is why the ceremony is so strong in working, because it does take a cold heart. Okay. And
Well,
for
like I said while you were gone, William, every curse, no matter skinwalkers, whatever the situation, every time you cast a curse, you have an attachment to it, and there's a price for it. That's just the way that works out. And even with a skinwalker, there's a price to pay for what you do. We know that
Mhm.
without a doubt. But here's the interesting thing, like we said earlier about that lifestyle. It opens you up to darkness, and darkness invades you. I know you know what I'm talking about here. That darkness invades you. It changes you. It twists you and warps you. Eventually, it can consume you, burn you up,
Mhm.
physically and spiritually in many aspects. That's what's so dangerous about this dark magic, what its effects will have on you. Not just the person you're going after. You pay a price for the things you do too, you know.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. It's a ritual that I won't ever forget. Um, yeah, it's something that sticks with you your entire life. So and to the people that I have harmed with doing the dark magic. I only pray that they can forgive and pray that you know my soul goes to heaven and not the other place. So, but we all make changes in our lives, and at that point in my life, I was protecting myself and my family, my immediate family, and I was very, very rebellious against any type of authority, especially authority that wasn't Native American. Um,
Rebellious
so
spirit
yeah,
within you, the sort
yeah,
of a rebellious spirit. Yeah. I've been through that phase, I think too. But here's the interesting thing, William, just like with you, considering you, and I think you need to tell your story. I think you need to write it down or at least record it for posterity. We need to get you a tape recorder or something that you record all that. But even if you can't write it down, record it, it can be written later. Don't worry about that. But anyway, what I was going to say is if we go to the edge sometimes, and I've been there. Okay, my friend, I've been there. Not going to elaborate on it, but I've been there. I've been to the edge. As long as we go to the edge and come back, that's the main thing. We don't want to go like some other people go over the edge. Okay, as long as we come back, thank God to our Creator that we were brought back from this edge, and it didn't consume us. It didn't go that way. That's good, and that's a good
hmm
thing to dwell upon. You know, it didn't go the way it could have went. You know,
hmm yeah, definitely.
but when you're young, especially with that rebellious spirit, you do a lot of stupid things. Uh, we've all been there, I think. Thank goodness we lived through it. But uh, you know, some of us go a little bit far out with that, and others did, of course. But that was being young, doing stupid things when you shouldn't have.
Dennis, I think I'm going to put in the chat. I'm going to put the link to the show to come on. I think Lord Emp would be a great one to come on and talk to about his encounter with the dog man.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
anyone else that wants to come on may come on too, but please only do it one at a time. Okay, we don't want to overflow the StreamYard. So, but I'm
Yeah,
posting
well,
the link right now, and
StreamYard can get flaky if we're not careful. It's been doing better, seems like, here lately, William. StreamYard has. I don't know. I hope it stays that way. Maybe it's a knock on wood.
yeah,
But by all means, just come on and tell us your story. We definitely would like to hear it.
Joey Z and Raven Creek are in the house, and Stephen Rivas. Good to see you all. Good to see you all.
Quoth the Raven,
Yeah.
nevermore.
Let's see here.
Give me 20 minutes, okay? We're going to be here a little while.
Yeah, yeah.
The only bad thing here's the thing about William, when you and I, people like us, have certain knowledge of things, we have to keep some of that to ourselves because there are foolish people out there who will take this knowledge if we give it to them and do some really stupid things with it. And unfortunately, we can't say everything that we want to say. We can't reveal a lot of stuff because of that. I'm sorry, but that's just the way that goes. Uh, we live in a society where you have to warn people to take the baby out of the jumper before you wash it. Uh, I mean, we have to be very careful with the knowledge that we're giving out here because we don't want bad things to happen from that. So we can't give out too much of what we're talking about here because if you do, bad things might happen. Because, as my grandmother used to say, little pitchers have big ears.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of this ancient magic has to do with blood ceremonies. There's a definite factor in that. The blood, there's a big connection with the
Mm-hmm.
shedding of blood and
Yeah.
all that. That even goes back to the
Not
days of the
all.
Mayans and the Aztecs and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. No, not all. Well, and not all are the same. It just depends on the type of transformation you make. Um, whether it's more of a supernatural transformation or if it's a more physical um, transformation. So where you basically
Yeah.
shed your human body and you turn into the animal. Um, but now, in most cases, though, we as the walkers cannot basically transform into something smaller than what our physical form is. Now, that being said, there are some birds that we can't change into, like a robin or a chickadee or, that kind of stuff. But if you're talking about eagles, hawks with 6 to 10 foot wingspans, yes, we can change into them very easily. Um,
I think that's something
we can
size.
change into
Size does
change into
matter when it comes to things like that. Size does matter, uh, spiritually speaking, because
right,
that's what you're
but
doing.
that, that's the physical transformation. Then you have the supernatural one where I was talking about earlier, where it's out of a body experience and you take on supernaturally the form of a basically, well, a skinwalker. Okay, 9 feet tall, 8 feet tall, beast. And you can look down. You can look down at your body and see your body laying there next to the fire. You know,
Uh,
and with the animal laying next to it, that's you're involving yourself into, transforming yourself into, which is usually a coyote or a wolf, in that aspect. So,
right.
but yeah, there's different transformations of the walker process. Okay, so depending on how powerful you are, and the more powerful you are, the more supernatural you're going to be able to do. It's not going to be the physical. The physical transformation of it is a less, believe it or not, is a less powerful than the supernatural one,
Mm,
because the
yeah.
supernatural one is basically indestructible. So
Mhm.
bullets won't hurt it.
But how much does actual Earth energies figure into that? Is that used a lot? Is that right?
Makal Wakan, yeah, Sacred Mother Earth is always brought into the ceremony. You have to make that connection from Mother Earth to the Sky Father. You have
Mm,
to, you have to be that conduit. The medicine men are always the conduit between Mother Earth and the people to Mother Earth to the Creator, or Mother Earth to or the Creator to the people. We're always that conduit. Now, that conduit sometimes can take an adverse, turn to the evil. Darkness is what we were talking about earlier. Which is what happened to me. Um, and it can make you less of a help, or wanting to help your fellow tribe members out than your oyate, your nation, out. Um, but that being said, most black medicine men magic it's a solitary life. Um,
Hmm.
just like with the werewolf, it's a solitary life. You're not a pack hunter. You're not a pack activist. We do, however, we will come together to perform ceremonies together, um, because it's always stronger when you have groups of three or more.
A group,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and then again, there's that number three. It's preferred, preferred to number three. Um, so yeah, you take it for what it's worth.
Well, I find it interesting, William, that you can't even have lightning without earth. Lightning begins on the earth, goes up to the sky and back down. There's that conduit you're talking about. There's that connection with the power of the earth itself.
Yeah.
People do not realize that the earth that you stand upon is a sentient power in itself in many ways. We've lost that ability to tap into that power. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of us have, and that's where a
Yep.
lot of this stuff originates. That's why I said that earth energy is a definite thing there. With that,
Which
definitely.
which reminds me, the earth energy is connected to every living soul
Hmm.
on earth. Okay, there is, whether you're a Native American or not, your earth essence, your energy in your body, your vibration of your body is connected to Mother Earth. And this, I will tell you why. It's been proven. Okay, people have been increasing their vibrations, their spiritual vibrations, for years now, and it's become so prominent in everyday life now, where people, they do their meditations and stuff and their mantras and all that to increase their
Yeah.
vibration, their experience in this life. It affects the vibration of the earth. The earth's vibration is normally 7.48
Hmm. I've heard
meg. Yeah. It's used 7.48 to 8.4. And now currently it's 190.
that.
So
Way up.
all the increased vibrations from everybody increasing their vibrational field around them
Hmm.
and embracing that part of their essence has increased the vibration of the earth. There is that connection. Okay, that is why we as an indigenous people say everything is connected. Okay, there's not one thing in your life that you're going to come across that isn't meant to be there in your path.
Here's an interesting thing, William. Just sitting there thinking, listening to you. That's what the Bible says too. From the earth thou art, to the dust thou shalt return. There's that connection there too. You came from the earth. You're the makeup of the earth
Mm-hmm.
itself. There's why that connection is there. You know, absolutely. Once you have
Yeah.
been cured, cursed? Yeah. Also, so every curse can be broken if you do it the right way, and if your intentions are true. You can break any curse, but you got to do it the correct way. And here's the interesting thing, also, too, and I've ran into this problem. I know William has too. You got to want to be uncursed, okay? You got to want to get rid of that. You got to want, you got to cooperate in getting rid of that curse. And sometimes that can be a change in your lifestyle, and people don't want to do that sometimes.
Yep. True.
Yeah.
Very true.
You're talking about the skinwalkers and all that. Very much like the berserkers, the Viking berserkers, and there's but the word berserker means bear. Like they turn into like a bear. There were also wolf berserkers. They thought they changed into wolves. They became these animals on the battlefield to a certain extent, which made them very dangerous because they were no longer human in that respect. They were animals. You have this thing all over the world. You have the leopard men and the lion men in Africa. You have the tiger men in Indochina and places like that. You have these different aspects all over the world. And it's not just one place that these people could tap into these dark sources and do these things. It was worldwide because that's just the way humanity is. If there was a way to tap into it, humanity was looking for it, definitely. And if you could
Yep.
change even your very shape and your outlook on these things, that was considered to be very powerful stuff. Of course, it was. And like I've said before, that's one of the premier powers of the demonic, shapeshifting.
Yep.
That's one of their
Yep.
big things.
Yep. Yep. So, whenever Dennis and I talk about the demonic, we don't talk about it lightly. It's not a subject that you want to talk about lightly. Okay.
No, no.
It's one that, we have to very, very cautiously talk about. Because personally, I don't want to go back to the old ways. I don't want to go back to my old ways. And because it's a very, very dark past. So yeah, I'm much happier being who I am today. So, but that being said, we're gonna have a
here's
sticker.
another thing. Oh yeah, you got your stickers out. All right. Okay, I like
Yeah,
that
we're
one.
gonna have we're gonna have
Ah,
a sticker giveaway. Okay, I got a pack of
all right.
stickers here. Okay, and the first person that can actually put in the chat, not the 3, but the 4 classifications of a transforming dog wolf creature. The 4 classifications, okay? And I will go over them with each and every one of you right now because we talked about all 4 of them. One of them has to do with my past, okay? The other 3, Dennis and I have talked about thoroughly. So whoever can answer that first
Have
in the
you been
chat
listening?
gets
Have you
a
been listening?
sticker pack. Let's
Yeah, I was
see
going to
here.
say that, I have dealt with the demonic for many, 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 many years. It's a dark, dark subject. It's not one of my favorites, actually. A lot of people think it is. It's not. It's not my favorite. I'd rather talk about light things. I'd rather talk about the good things, because the demonic is just downright evil and dirty and dark. It's nothing you want to deal with on a daily basis. I've come to the point in my life where I'd rather talk about angels than the demonic anytime. Angels are a much more fascinating subject to me, and a more wholesome subject, definitely. But I've had a lot of people come to me over the years talking about demons, demons, demons. They become fascinated and obsessed with these demons. You don't want to do that, people. You don't want to do that because you open the door and let them in, they will definitely come in. You know. So you have to be very careful how you approach this subject. As William said, it's a very dangerous and very dark subject, and how you deal with it is how your outcome will be with it. Definitely. 369 universal numbers also, they're called the numbers of supposed creation. And the reason why a lot of things are done in threes, it's a very magical number, but it can also be a sort of a twisted way for the dark things in this universe to use that number 3 because of the Holy Trinity and all that. So you got to recognize that aspect as well. It's interesting to note that Jesus died on the cross at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Um, and yet, at the opposite side of the clock, when the night is at its darkest, when the powers of darkness are supposed to be most prevalent, it's 3 a.m. in the morning. It's just the opposite of what was good and light. It's interesting how that works out, and of course, 3, 6, and 9 are just derivatives of the number 3. It all ties into that number 3. Oh yeah, angels are my favorite cup of tea. much more uplifting subject, definitely.
Yes.
I'd rather be. Count me on the side of the angels, okay? That's where I'd rather be. I don't want to go on the other side. I want to be on the side of the angels.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, we're gonna have to
Definitely.
do another show.
Well,
We'll have to do another show one day, William, on angels. It's a very fascinating subject.
why don't we just make that our subject for tomorrow, since tomorrow's Sunday?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that would be good. We'll do angels tomorrow. Yeah. The angelic. Fascinating subject. 3 has followed me all my life. Number, Einstein said something, Einstein said that the universe is mathematics, and God knows that without doubt. The Creator knows all about mathematics. He created it, and He has set the universe up on an axis of mathematics. All these numbers work out the right way. Everything is the angles. It's perfection. Okay, true mathematics would be perfection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. So tomorrow will definitely be our angel day. So everybody bring your halo and your wings, and we'll talk around the cup of
We'll see how
coffee
that
about.
flies. We'll see
Yeah,
how that
we'll see.
flies.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I think tomorrow's subject is going to be very, very. I think it's going to be very, very uplifting. Let me put it to you this way, and believe me, I think I need it. All this talk today
Yeah.
of the walkers and everything and ceremony just kind of makes me think back to why did I ever do that to begin with? And I think I actually have finally come to grips with the fact that, you know what, I was an innocent child when I got sucked into that.
Yeah,
And so that has a lot to doing with redemption. um
absolutely. Absolutely. William, our environment shapes us sometimes, whether for good and bad. We just don't realize that, And our upbringing is very important in that respect. So, really, in some ways, it may not excuse everything you ever did. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to throw a blanket over it for you. But I think that would definitely be taken into account in your situation, is how you were brought up and the influences of your environment on certain decisions that you made. You know what I'm saying?
mhm. Looks like Lord Imp is the closest one. So send me your mailing address there, brother, my dear brother, and I will get a sticker pack off to you, and we can weirdo warrior your ride.
Yeah. Somebody was listening.
Okay.
Werewolves are very, very
Uh,
interesting subject, definitely.
yep.
Um,
Yep.
down to, and you go back and look in history, how much the wolf, I'm just talking about the natural wolf, has played a part with mankind. He's been with us from a long, long time back. Look at the dire wolf and all this other things. He's played an important part in folklore and our culture, our very way of life. The wolf is an interesting animal. That's one of my favorite animals, by the way. The wolf is a very interesting animal. I like wolves and lions. They're my two favorites. I like hawks and eagles too. But anyway, uh, the wolf played a very interesting part in mankind's story, definitely.
Yes, it does. I got to tell you guys, I just went to and got a cup of coffee this morning, and the first cup I got, I had to mix this it's an instant. It's the cinnamon, the Spanish. Here, let me grab it. It's this, okay,
Oh,
and let me tell you that this stuff here will set your mouth on fire. If you ever
ooh,
want, if you ever want to wake
that'll
up in
wake
a
you up.
hurry, get you some of
That'll,
this with the cinnamon in it. Oh my God! So I mixed it with, I mixed it with some of my Starbucks coffee that Miriam colleague sent me, and so to kind of downplay the cinnamon taste in it. It didn't downplay it at all. Now, no,
that sounds like a
it
coffee cocktail, William. Coffee
it's
cocktail.
it is. If you are one to drag your feet in the morning, I highly recommend that Nescafe cinnamon coffee, because if you want to wake up, it will wake you up. Trust me. And it's not even the caffeine that does it; it's the cinnamon. So the cinnamon.
Yep, that sounds like it would. Sounds like Sasquatch coffee. I had some of that one
Oh
time.
man,
Woo! That
it's
Sasquatch coffee. Mm, that stuff.
yeah.
That's so strong it'd get out of the cup and slap you in the face. You know what I'm saying?
That's
Yeah,
funny you say that. That's funny you say that, because I got a big old bag of it over there. Sasquatch
yeah,
coffee.
that's good. Ooh, yeah.
And that was sent to me by Stephen Rivas.
Uh,
Thank you, Stephen, for sending that. But yeah, I got like, man,
you drink it,
that
get you a
cinnamon
sip of
coffee.
that.
I'm sure Stephen probably had it.
You take a sip of that, and you go like, "What was that?"
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure Stephen might have had that cinnamon coffee down there in the Southwest, because apparently it's very prominent in the Southwest. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, that wow. You talk about waking up. Oh my God. You're either gonna wake up or you're gonna burn up. One of the two.
Well, cinnamon's supposed to be good
Uh,
for you too, health wise. Cinnamon's supposed to be good for you. I
oh
like my
yeah,
cinnamon
yeah. I
on.
mean, it helps the body
Hey,
weight.
hey, William, I like my cinnamon on a bun.
Have a little bit of bun with your cinnamon,
Yeah,
and
just a little bit. Yeah.
uh, anyways, not that I was doing a commercial or anything, but man, that was just wow.
Mm.
I can't believe the first cup of that I had. And then to be stupid enough to mix it with Starbucks coffee, which is straight caffeine. So now,
Oh,
now I'm dealing with not only the cinnamon, but I'm dealing with excessive caffeine too. And it's like,
it's a wonder you're not bouncing off the walls over there. Okay.
I think my head's gonna explode.
Uh, oh,
uh, anyway,
I got my Civil War cannonball out. Makes a great paperweight, and if you ever have to hit somebody with it, you'd probably kill. uh, I'll have to show you one day. We'll have to
oh
do a tour of everything on my desk here. Okay, one day.
oh, I'm telling you, Aunt Edna, you better be careful with that coffee. That coffee
Yeah.
will get you. I thought, oh yeah, it's just cinnamon. I'll be able to handle that. No problem. I'm a tough guy. I could take it. You know.
Adults only. Adults only,
Yeah,
please.
that coffee should have a warning label on it that it's very, very,
Yeah,
very, very stimulating in ways that you just can't
I
even
would imagine
describe.
so. Uh, Might be overstimulating.
Yeah, I don't know. It's I don't even know. I got it because it was on sale. I got each of those jars for like 90 cents each. Okay.
Uh,
So I have two jars of it, and I'm thinking to
okay.
myself, now how in the heck am I going to use it now? You know,
Uh,
because it's like you have to dilute it. You have to dilute
yeah.
it with like a pound of coffee. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. If you serve it at your next coffee party or something, might have an interesting time there. Definitely.
Yeah,
That's right, Yolanda. We are here at trial and
yeah.
error. We're not perfect, except me. Now I'm perfect. Okay, I'm perfect. Okay, you can believe that. All right. You take that to the bank. Okay. But anyway,
Yeah. Hey,
I can be a perfect screw. I can be a perfect screw up or whatever. But I'll be perfect at it anyway. But anyway,
hey, Dennis, what do you? Let me ask you this, Dennis. What do you think about time travel? What's your thought process on that? What's your theory on that?
I have been very fascinated by that for many, many years. Uh, to me, it is it's a broad subject. It can go into a lot of different things. I love time travel. I've read every book I could get my hands on about it, every story, the time machine, all of them. I love time. I would love to be a time traveler, definitely. It would be interesting to go back and observe history. That's what I would want. I'm not that big on the future, although I'd like to see what the future looked like. Every writer has that idea of what the future might be. But I would also like to observe history. Fascinating, fascinating subject. I wouldn't want to change anything because that's the very important thing about time travel. You change one thing, kill one mosquito that shouldn't be killed, you could screw up the whole timeline of the world and mess everything up. Talking about perfect screw up, that would definitely be it. So you'd have to be very, very, very careful. It would the only way you could truly safely time travel would be to be an observer only and not touch anything, not do anything. To me, that would be the way to do it. But I think it's quite possible. Let me tell you this, okay? And we got to think about time in this respect. And I've said this before, I'll use this anthology again. Time is like a river flowing down. It's flowing, it's always moving. You stand on the bank of that river, you can only see so much upriver, you can only see so much downriver, okay? God, being the creator and everything, he could see the whole river. That's a different story. He could see the whole river. He made that river, by the way. Okay. But now listen, here's the
Knows every
interesting thing.
minute.
If we step into that river at that point where we're at, if we step into that river, we won't be the same person the next day that steps in that river again. Even if it's the same place, because that river has changed, because it's flowing, ever moving onward. But what if we could go back upriver and step in the river then? You see, so that's time. It's ever moving. It's never flowing. But you got to throw this out the window. There's two kinds of time here that we got to look at. Natural flowing time, which was set up by our creator, or man-made time, which is a clock on a wall, or a pocket watch, or a calendar. That's man-made time. That can be manipulated. That can be fluctuating. Real natural time, however, is a force of the universe. So you'd have to be careful how you deal with that real time and not the time of man. And
Right.
it's
Exactly.
fascinating stuff. Fascinating stuff. What would you do if there's one thing you could do, William? If you could go back in time and change one thing, what would it be? Now I'm talking about in your life, now not the world history. I'm talking about in your life. What one thing, if you could change, would you go back and change?
not to be disrespectful to anybody, but I would probably change the parents that I had. And and don't get me wrong, I don't want anybody to think or assume that I hate my parents because I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I love them very much. They are still my parents. But
Mm-hmm.
just what I was introduced into life as a child, being born into that kind of an upbringing, is something I would want to avoid if I could again. So
That would be it. Huh? Well, like that environment we talked about earlier, you would like to change your environment.
yeah,
Yeah, that way. Yeah, I can understand that. Definitely. Yeah. That we would all, I think, to a certain extent, like to manipulate that for the better of things. There are things I would like to go back and change. Definitely. I think we would all do that, given a choice. There'd be certain things we would change. And I'm not talking about world history. You could go back and think about if you went back and got rid of Hitler. How many people would be alive today? How much the world vastly would be changed by that? But they might not be changed for the good. That's the problem. You don't know what you're doing when you manipulate time,
you
and
could
that's
just
what's
be
so interesting
yeah,
about it. Uh,
you could be just temporarily delaying another Hitler coming up in the future from that timeline that could be 100 times worse than the Hitler there. So
exactly, exactly. Yeah.
hey,
Even if you change one thing,
we got a
and
little
then
damn
that's
fun.
why I said that's what I've said a lot about. God. There are certain things He has to do at certain times without screwing the timeline up, because things have already been set in motion. You
Mm-hmm.
understand? If things are flowing like that river,
Yep.
so there's only certain things you can do.
Yep.
You have to be
Exactly.
very careful how you handle
Exactly.
it.
Matt,
Oh,
how
that's
you doing,
Batman.
brother?
I like the Batman shirt.
Hey guys, I'm still in the car. I had to do something. That's why I said give me a minute. But I'm on my way to the pool, so I thought I'd jump in now.
Okay, that'd be
All
fine.
right.
Yeah, you said you had a dogman encounter, man. That'd be pretty interesting to hear about.
Yeah, you know what? I've told it on some people here might have heard it on some other shows. I've told it. Um, it was a pretty long experience. It was about a 6 minute experience from beginning to end. Not the whole time was the dog man there, but it was part of the happening. I'll give an abridged version since you guys are having your show. Um, Normally, I go into extreme details. It usually takes about an hour. So I'm from Youngstown, Ohio. It happened when I was about 14 years old, and three of my best friends. We frequented the old steel mills downtown in Youngstown, Ohio. And we were down there one day, which turned into night. We had a building that we frequented and kind of made our quote unquote home base. And we fortified it, had like open walls on all four corners of the building, so we kind of closed it up. And we'd have fires in there at night. There was a railroad that went right outside of it, and if you Google old Youngstown, Ohio steel mills, you'll see by the blast furnace area exactly what I'm talking about because that's where the building was. Um, we wanted these walls up for numerous reasons, mostly because there's still a working steel mill in that area, and they use that railroad track. If they rode by and saw us with a fire inside of a building, they're going to call the police. So we didn't want that. There were also, some people that did nefarious things down there that they didn't want anybody else to see, so we had to not be around those type of people. And then the thing that caused the most problem for people in that area was there were packs of wild dogs. And if anybody is in bigger cities and you know about what packs of wild dogs, they're very dangerous. They kill people, literally kill people. Um, we didn't want to have run-ins with these. And the building that we were in had no stairs up into the building. So we, as human beings, just hopped up and kind of rolled our way in. The dogs would be able to get in there. So that's why we liked it. The night that this experience happened, we were inside. We had a really big fire going, and we heard the pack of wild dogs coming towards our building. So we just walked outside. It had, like a opening, a concrete kind of almost patio kind of thing that we could stand and look at them and not be bothered. Well, about a pack of 6 or 7 of them on a mission ran right by us, just maybe 5 feet, and up a huge pile of coke, which anybody that knows the steel mill making process, coke is part of the ingredient process. So they had huge,
Yep.
right, and they had huge piles of these things outside of the building. So they ran up one side of it that we could see, and they ran down to the other side, which immediately started into what we thought they were fighting with each other. We just heard them in just mass hysteria, attacking, biting. Excuse me. Within a couple seconds. Oh, and by the way, yeah, I have to have mine too. So it is a necessity. So we hear them attacking, and not long after that, we hear something above them, something like a larger animal that we figured out they were attacking something. And then this, whatever it was, because we couldn't see what was going on, it started attacking back. And immediately we started hearing yelping. We started hearing this pack of wild dogs getting laid into. And not within 2-3 seconds, we see 2 of the pack of dogs being literally airborne coming over this pile of coke. They were thrown. That's the only explanation. Hit the ground, roll. One got up, limped away. Another one had a really obvious injury, bad injury on its shoulders, like its skin was flayed open. I felt bad. I'm an animal lover. I have 2 dogs. I hope it didn't die, but from the injury I saw, I think it probably did later that day. Within a couple more seconds, we see they must be having a parade. I'm driving my people line. Hi, everybody. I'm sorry. This thing throws 2 more dogs over, and then they hit the ground, limp away. The other 2 or 3 come over running, took off like bats out of hell. They went back the way they came, and we're just standing there stunned. Our mouths are, hanging wide open. We're looking at them running away. Not long after that, my one buddy who was kind of standing behind me to my left says, "Hey guys, what is that? What's that over there?" And we all look simultaneously to our rights. Only about 15 feet from when we're standing, on the top of the coke pile is, I kid you not, the biggest animal, and we all agree, the biggest animal we have ever seen to date. I always say this when I tell my experience to give the idea of the size of what we saw. It looked fake. It didn't seem like it belonged in reality. And what we saw was just looked like a big wolf. It was gigantic. It was, and again, we had talked. 2 of my buddies are no longer here. They passed away, unfortunately. One of them is still here, but we all talked about it for years afterwards on what we could compare the shape and the size of this thing, and the only thing that we could compare it to in the way that it was built and the length of its limbs and its body was a polar bear. And a polar bear has a very lanky, almost longer limbs. If you compare it to, say, a Kodiak grizzly bear, they're like a walking boulder. This thing was streamlined, but its limbs were longer. It was lean, but it wasn't, just it was very big but long. And what we were just in shock looking at it, and this thing was also watching these dogs uh, flying away or running away. They almost were flying. They were going so fast, and what it did was what a lot of dogs do. It lifted its leg, and some people might think this is funny. We did not find it funny. Lifted its leg and started doing its business. And what freaked me out personally right away was when it started doing its business. This animal was so big, the stream that came out of it was also very large, and it started hitting this top of this mound of this smelting material, this coke, and just pieces of it are being thrown in the air, and it was just like watching a hose going off, and that scared me because even something like that was so forceful and so uncharacteristically crazy, and again almost fake, that I was just in shock. We all were. And I told you we had fashioned walls in this building. We used, someday I'm going to figure out what they were. They used them obviously, or made them. They were made of steel, maybe 3 or 4 feet high. They were kind of shaped like a U, so you could walk into almost like an old style, like gladiator shield, the kinds that come around you. It was in the shape of that. I don't know what it was for. They had tons of them in this building, this old dilapidated building. And we used those, and we lined them up down each open space. North, south, east, and west was open. So we created walls, and we helped each other, stack them as high as we could. I think we got 2 or 3 rows. I mean, these things were like 100 pounds. It took 2 of us to move them. So my one buddy that was behind me, who noticed it first, it caught him, off guard, and he fell back into this makeshift wall, which made the characteristic heavy metal on concrete noise, which is very, jarring and whoa. And, we all were like that. And the animal did the same thing, and it gave us his full attention. He had not noticed us. He had given us the time of day, and he saw us and was giving us his full attention. And what happened immediately made the blood run out of my face. I know I had to be white as a ghost. Was its eyes was the first thing we all noticed, and its eyes were so bright, of an amber yellowish orange type of color. I've never seen a color again since that night. So bright it almost seemed like it had a battery source behind it. Yeah, there you go. There's the picture. That's giving me the chills. That's very similar to what I saw. It was so big, though, you could see its eyes, even though it was 15 feet away. The thing was giant, and its eyes were so bright. You could see the pupils in the eyes, and the inner quote unquote circles you have on your eyes. You could see the detail of its eyes. But what was also so disturbing, not just how bright the eyes were, which was just, again, it was like, what are we looking at? This is fake. It's looking at each of us, and we could see each one of us being looked at by this thing. We knew which one it was looking at. So I knew when it was looking at me, and my buddy next to me, and so on and so forth. And it growled at us. And immediately what I felt, and later what my friends had told me, we all felt in our chest immediately. And it was like something slammed into our chest. My whole body vibrated. 2 of my friends, the one that fell into the wall and another one, immediately said, I don't feel good. I feel like I'm going to throw up. The other one said he felt like he was going to pass out. I didn't feel like that. What I felt like was the muscles in my legs, from my quads on down to my calves into my ankles and feet, were just so weak, and had a strange feeling in them. And I felt like I was going to go down on my knees. And, I liken it to anybody that's ever had, which is all of us, had a nightmare where you're running from something, a monster or whatever, and you can't run. Your legs feel like that, and it comes and it's right on you. It's going to get you. That's how my legs felt. My best friend told me later that that's similar, basically, to what he felt. It did something next, which changed. Shifted. The world stopped, and it stood up on two legs, and it wasn't like a wolf or a dog standing up on its hind legs trying to get something, like your dog at home that you're going to give a treat and you make it stand up on its hind legs. It wasn't, falling or fluttering. It stood up like a person would. It was seemed like very comfortable, as comfortable on two legs as it was on four. And right then and there, again, it was giant, but when it stood up, it was like when you take a big bear and he stands up and he's twice as big as he was. And this thing stood up and it was just so massive. It looked like you know what? I saw a Bigfoot show recently where a police officer was with his wife, and they were on four-wheelers and they were looking for ginseng, and they were driving through the woods, and he saw it and he stopped. His wife asked him, "What are you doing?" He goes, look, and she sees him. "Oh my God, no. Oh my God, no." And they took off, and he said, when I was looking at this thing, the only way I can describe the size of it, it was like looking at a sheet of plywood. And if anybody's gone to Home Depot to get plywood, you know how damn big these things are. Well, that's a good description of what this thing looked like. It was every bit as wide and I think taller. And it just, like I said, it was a paradigm shift. It was, my God, we're looking at, and I heard your descriptions earlier of there's a difference between dogman and werewolf, and I wasn't thinking about a man becoming it. This thing looked every bit as it was born or made this way. However, if it's supernatural or not, that's what it was. And I just was saying to myself, I'm looking at a werewolf. I'm looking at what I thought was myth and legend. I've seen in books, I've seen on TV. It's not real. This doesn't exist. Well, we were looking at it, and I was at that point, at that subconscious level, saying, okay, this is the point where I wake up. I'm gonna wake up. This is gonna be a cool dream to tell, but I didn't. It was happening, and it was horrifying, and it was
Do
all.
you remember seeing a tail on this thing?
Yeah, I saw it after this, so I'm gonna move from this part to another part. I will see the tail, but not right now. I did not.
No.
When what we just were going kind of crazy. My buddy behind me had enough. He turned around and ran in, and we heard and looked and saw, and we followed suit. In the building, it was 4 floors high, concrete building. Each corner of the room, there was like a gigantic, and I'm going to explain why I'm saying this later. There were 4 gigantic concrete pillars that went from the very base of this building up through the floors all the way up to the ceiling. They obviously were foundation pillars, and they were huge. They were maybe 4 or 5 feet wide and went the entire height of the building. Um, there were also stairs on the wall. They were made to come out of the wall. So on the outside of the wall, there were stairs that went up to the 4th floor. It was, like I said, an old dilapidated steel mill building. So there were areas where the steps had fallen away through the years. Going from the 1st floor to the 2nd floor, there was maybe 4 of them missing with just rebar kind of sticking up. So when we ran up these stairs, we had to hop over them. And there was each one going up to each floor. There was a couple missing here and there, but we ran up to the 2nd floor, then up to the 3rd, and we stopped just there. And as soon as we got up, we went to the center of the room, which you could, on the 1st floor, look up through each 4 floors or 3 floors on top of you from the 1st. And from the top or either floor, go to the center room, there was a half cement wall, and you could look down at each floor. So we were standing there looking at the opening of this makeshift wall that we had just ran in, and excuse me, and I'm hoping in my head that we are not going to see this thing come in. I hope I don't hear it. I hope it just ran away. There's a fire in here. Maybe it won't. So my buddy who had ran in and had fallen into the wall has now gone postal. He's lost it. He's crying. He's saying, I want to go home. We all start immediately, shut up, shut up, shut up. You're gonna get it. It's gonna hear you and it's gonna come in. And he was just losing it. So I'm a big guy. I'm 6'4". I was a big kid, and I grabbed him. I was behind him, and I grabbed him around the mouth. I didn't realize how hard I grabbed him. I had his feet dangling off the floor, but we were all telling him, shut up or we're not going to let you go. His eyes start rolling. He was losing air. We put him down, and I stopped, and I said, you're going to shut up. This thing's going to come in. Just please shut up. And so we're standing there. Right after I said that to him, we hear a thump, a loud thump, and we could feel the vibrations in the ground, in the concrete. We hear that telltale sign of nails on concrete, like dog's nails, and I knew immediately it's coming in. It's getting up, and when you've had a fire and you see fires, that the shadows from whatever's standing by it are multiplied, and the size of them are very large compared to the size of whatever's making it. And we see first the shadow of this creature on the far wall, and it's of course dominating basically as far as we could see. This thing enters the room on all fours, and my heart stopped. And what I saw immediately was muscles rippling all over it because the fire from the light hit this thing. So now we had a fabulous view of it right on top of it, 20 feet from it at the most. And you could see under its fur, which was all black. You could see maybe that long, so inch and a half long at most. It had, and I debated through the years if it did. I saw a real light white stripe going from the back of its neck all the way down its back to the end of its very long tail. And I don't know. I thought maybe it was just shine from the fire or what, but I think it did. I think it had white. My other buddy said he thought he saw a white stripe. The other two said we didn't even notice. It had muscles everywhere, and the way it walked was very panther-like, very black, panther or a cougar kind of walk, or tiger. When those big cats walk, you see all those muscles down its spine, but specifically when the shoulder blades pop up when it's walking, you could see just massive muscle even surrounding that area. So again, you're getting this sense of it's so big, it's just almost fake. And when it was coming in, first we see the head and then the back of the neck, and it's coming through the door, but it's almost like a train. And it's raining. Great. I'm going to the pool. Oh, well, I'm talking to you guys. It's almost like a train. A train coming through, that train effect, like when's it going to end? And it's coming through the door, and it's just so long. It's like, God, oh my God. I said, Jesus Marimba in another way. I just couldn't believe, again, the size of this thing. And I hope the rain doesn't get bad and cause me problems with you guys. I also noticed the sound of the nails on the concrete, very loud. I never saw the actual nails or talons or whatever it had, but you could hear them, and they were very loud on the concrete, and they were obviously long. Its tail was not bushy. It was mountain lion-ish, kind of, real thick. So you could have grabbed it. It was probably like that thick. and it didn't seem like the fur was extremely long on the tail either. I've heard stories of having experiences with them, and they have giant bushy tails and things like that. It did not have a bushy tail. Another thing that I noticed was it had on the sides of its neck. Um, Backing up here, guys. Give me one sec. Uh, I apologize. Okay, honey, go.
No, you're
So
fine. You're fine.
it had these tufts of hair coming out of the side of its neck, and it came off each side, and they were spade shaped. They weren't especially thick or bushy, but they were noticeable. They were enough for me to see, and that stuck out to me. I found that it was almost, I don't know, Wolverine like the way that they were coming off. But again, they were obviously spade shaped to a point. Um, and what it was doing, again, we saw the eyes. I don't know if even more because of the fire, you're getting even more like eye shine, but they were just so bright already. And we had wondered before about the eyes if we thought maybe because it was standing on the top of this coke pile, the fire from inside was shining on the top portion of its body. So we thought maybe at first that it was eye shine. It wasn't eye shine. It was something different. And that's why I'm a believer that these things are supernatural, not just because of the eyes. There's some other things that happen, but it was just too bright to be eye shine, and it was salivating and when it came in, and it was dripping like, just not like little strings. It was just like bakunk bakunk. It was just pouring out of its mouth, and that signaled to me immediately, like when we see a good steak or whatever food does it for you, your mouth starts watering, and that's the impression I got from it. That the mouth was watering because it knew that there were four little, boys in here, and it was about to eat or attack and kill us. Um, and that's what the fear I had, that we were going to be killed. And it was just pouring out of its mouth, and you could hear when the big strands would break and hit the concrete, it was like the sound of it raining on concrete, and that was very disturbing. And it stood up again. It stood up, and it was looking around the room, and it did the sniff in the air, and immediately after sniffing twice, it put its head down, and it snapped its head and looked directly at us, right at us. And that, you want to talk about, oh my God, blood leaving the body. I just felt that anxiety that, you get so horrible over things, over extreme fear, that it's a sick feeling in your chest. And it looked at us and it growled again, and we did not, however, get that infrasound effect from it. I'm a believer. We felt vibration, we felt it a little bit, but I'm a believer, and they were too, that this half wall of concrete that we were standing in front of, or behind, blocked most of this infrasound or what it did to us outside. I'm a firm believer of that, because we did feel a little something, but we didn't get sick or anything again. And it looked around, and it saw the stairs on the wall, went back down on all fours, and started running towards the stairs. And as it was running towards the stairs, um, I have to stop and go back. I left something out. When it was walking by the fire earlier, um, this is another thing that made me think that there was a supernatural type thing going on there. I only saw it for 1 or 2 seconds. I thought it was reflection from the fire. Maybe the legs were wet from whatever it was running through, and that's what I saw. So it had its left paw when it was ready to go down on the ground at one point, and that's another thing I didn't address. The paws or hands. The only thing I could compare them to were raccoon hands. Again, I didn't see the nails or whatever, was making the noise, but it had real long, like exaggerated long fingers. And they reminded me, when I've looked at things over the years, I saw raccoons and I said, wow, that kind of looks like the shape of the hands of what that thing had. And it had a human-shaped upper body, extremely massive. I'm not even going to compare it to a muscle builder, because there is no human being that compares to what this thing looked like in size and in shape. It had very huge rippling muscles, exaggerated, again, lengthy arms. Its hands went well beyond its knees. And it just had huge, massive muscles everywhere that you could see rippling. Its lats and its neck almost seemed like it was one muscle. You couldn't see the actual neck. You knew it was there, and you could see it from the top, but from the front, it just was just like, like that. Just so meaty, and again, shaped long, its limbs long and lean like a polar bear. And it had dog's legs. It did not. I've heard stories of people say they've seen dog men and that it had man's shaped legs. These were nothing of the sort. They looked very dog like, but when it was standing up again, it looked like it was comfortable. You could see the big muscle, the quadriceps in its legs. You could even see, when you see a big bodybuilder and they have very defined muscles, you could see where muscles meet, and there's almost like a line that goes in between muscles. You could see that in its thighs where the muscles separated. Its legs on the bottom, I didn't really notice the calves. Obviously, it was standing from the front at that point, but its bones down to its dog-like feet were really thick. So you knew that all the bones going through the body were just as massive as the rest of it.
It sounds like the musculature is more like that of a human than an animal. I mean, the way the muscles are laid out and everything, that's what
Yeah,
that sounds
for
like to me.
sure. For sure. Aside from the shape of the legs, the upper body from the waist up looked like man-like. Um, its head was very wolf, German Shepherdish. I've heard stories where they say that they saw them. They had shorter snouts, like a bear. This had a very long
Right.
snout, like a wolf. Its ears were very long atop its head. They were pointed up like a German Shepherd or a wolf. And wherever you could tell it was listening, they would move kind of like
Kind of like a German Shepherd
yes.
ears. Yeah.
And when they're listening to something and actually where they're listening, because the ears turn. And that's what it was doing too when it was looking around. And you saw its teeth. It growled at us a couple times. Extremely long canines coming from the top and the bottom. You could see glinting going in. So, it was just impressive everywhere around. You could tell this thing was created by whatever maker as a predator and a predator only. The ultimate alpha. I would, I think Sasquatch or Sabe are more human-like creatures, and they, just like good people, just like people, there's good people and bad people, and I think that's the same for Sasquatch. And maybe I think those Sasquatch being man-like and like that, and these are more animal-like. I think they're much smarter than a traditional dog or wolf. I think they're extremely intelligent, but I think they're supernatural. I would, but I wouldn't want to see a fight between maybe a bad Sasquatch and one of these. I think would be incredible.
Well, let me ask you this. Okay. Did you kind of get that, since you said that several times about it being supernatural? Did you get sort of an aura of this thing? Did
Well,
you kind of feel this spiritually, like, you know what I'm saying?
yes, and one of the things, I'm sorry, I'm kind of like dog squirrel. I get on something and I want to tell you the next thing. When it was walking by the fire, when its left foot paw hit the ground, You could see fire around it kind of wisp up, and the way the shape that came near it. If you've ever looked at like video of the sun and you get like cyclones and magnetic storms on the sun, that's kind of what it looked like shoot off the sides of its left foot. And its left foot for just a second or two looked like it blinked out, like it cloaked for a second, but only that part. And it happened long enough that I noticed it, and then it went away and it never happened again. So I thought about that all through the years, and I think that was part of a supernatural thing that it can do. I think the eyes are part of it. And when we were looking at the fire, I remember before this whole situation started, getting into a spiritual kind of thing. We were all kind of just staring at the fire, not talking, looking at the fire, kind of zoning out. We weren't doing drugs or drinking or anything. We were just kids, and I remember that. So I don't know if that was part of it and just brought the event on. And
Possibility. That's a possibility. You were, in that kind of frame of mind, you were kind of open to something like that.
Right,
Kind of happening.
right.
Yeah.
And that's about everything. I didn't see the color of the eyes again. I mean, I'm sorry, I did. I mean, like, if it had like regular eyes when they're not shining like that, if you know what I mean.
Right. Well, at a distance, it's kind of hard to make out eye.
Yeah, well, it was right now. It was just overblown with the orange, amber, yellow. But I know during the day, I would assume maybe these things have a color. You know what I mean? So I don't know what they are. If they're blue, they see blue, black, brown, whatever during the day in the woods. All we were seeing was this yellow, whatever sign. It hit the wall and it started running up, and it moved very panther-like, very big cat-like. It was almost beautiful to see this thing move. It was almost like oilish in the manner it moved, and it was very, very fast. And it hit the second floor, and two of my buddies start running for the outside, which there was a fire escape. Fire escape could take you up to the top of the roof. Couldn't take you down from the second floor down, because however long before these things had rusted away and fell, they were laying in a pile at the bottom of the ground. So you couldn't get out that way. You could go up. They started running for that door. I was froze. My other buddy was standing to my left. He was froze. And when this thing would get up to the top of the third floor, it would meet me and my friend. Or if it came up as fast as it was coming, it would catch one of the two going outside. And that's when I thought, we're about to die. I believe, I did have a very short flash of, my life flashing before my eyes. I thought of, I'm not going to see my family, my dog, anybody again. I thought, I'm about to die. It's going to maul all of us. We're going to watch each of us be killed. And I thought that was it. And it was at the middle of the second floor coming up, and a train started driving by the building. And when it came by the building, I think they did see the fire, because they hit their horn as they drove by. And
let me ask you, did you ever go back to this place after this incident?
Years later.
Did you ever get a feeling when you went back?
I was,
that spiritual thing there,
No, I was in a very nervous state. I was, worried we were going to see this thing, and that's where we got the size. We think about the size that it was, but it took off the stairs, and it went out so fast. It was just like a zip. Almost like like I've seen TV do shadow men leave a room. That's what it reminded me of. Just a black whip, and it was gone, and we never saw it again. We screamed for somebody on the train. Nobody came. We were in the building for maybe an hour, and we finally were ready to go out. My one buddy didn't want to go, and we had to scream at him and tell him we were going to leave him if he didn't come, because it's going to come back. And we left, and it took us a half an hour to get back. Every sound we heard made us think it was this thing behind us. We made it back, and it was a life-altering, experience. I've told it, on many different shows, Sasquatch Chronicles and the Confessionals and Dick.
You ever experience anything like that? It changes your whole perspective on things.
Yeah, yeah, it did.
It's a big traumatic. It is traumatic to a certain extent.
Well, I went and saw a priest.
Now, Matt, can I ask you?
Yes, sir, absolutely. And
Matt, can I ask you what year this was?
The sirens are going off for Saturday at noon. So if you hear that, I apologize. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I just wondered if I could find out what year this was that this happened.
Yes, sir. It was 87, 88-ish time. So I was 14 years old. We had got out of grade school, and we're getting ready to go be freshmen the following year in 87. So it'd be 87. And we were just out doing our thing like kids do, and we'd go all over the city and into other suburbs. But the one place that we frequented was this steel mill, and it was just, it was a life-changing event. And I went and saw a priest. I'm half Lebanese. We belong to a Maronite Rite Catholic church, and I went and talked to the priest about it, and he said,
"Were there any military bases near there?"
There's Vienna Air Base is near there. That's in Vienna, Ohio, Vienna. But what I think it came from,
it wasn't.
Go ahead.
It wasn't hunting you. It wasn't hunting you.
You don't think so? No. Well,
You just happened. I think this is just an actual incident of occurrence. You just happened to be at the right place at the right time.
You're right. I agree with you there. I do. Yeah, because he didn't know we were there when it was messing with the dogs. He looked almost, I don't know, maybe angry that we were looking at him and there. And when he saw us, he definitely didn't know we were there. Because when he
saw him.
Yeah. So
yeah.
It was pretty crazy. The thing that my priest told me was, Matthew, he said, there are things in this world that people don't understand, and they are real. And he said, I'm not going to go through a list, but these things exist, and once in a while we see them. And he said, he went into some religious things about how to deal with it. And, I don't know how much that helped. He talked about, with possessions and, things of supernatural sorts happen, and they are real. So, he did tell me that, but, I, to this day, occasionally have nightmares. I have PTSD guaranteed from it. We didn't know what it was back then. We do now. We all had issues dealing with it for a while. The only parent who believed us was my best friend's dad, who held a high position in the city. And he basically gave us the impression that they knew about this thing, that police had got calls about it, and that they've dealt with it. That summer, I had heard about, homeless people getting attacked, and I think one was killed by them. It was that summer or another summer right around then. And, it makes you wonder, was it this thing or was it the dogs? It could have been either. But looking at this thing, it could dispatch a human in a heartbeat. It would have, if it got to us, and it could have gotten rid of us so quickly, we couldn't have done a thing. We wouldn't have been able to do a thing.
Well, sometimes, and there's been a lot of speculation about this, that these things could be released by some kind of dark magic, that doorways are open and these things could come through. That they're not naturally occurring things in the nature, supposedly, of this world. So it makes you wonder if that's the supernatural aspect of it.
I,
And when you see something like that, you're immediately impressed in your mind that, hey, this is otherworldly kind of a thing here. This is
it
not
was. It was.
supposed to be here.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just on Michael Anthony's show the other night, and we had a good talk. I'm talking to Ernie Davey out. If anybody knows him, he had a really insane uh, experience with some Bigfoot, which is incredible. And it happened. It was real. These things exist. People can doubt it if they want to. I don't
Oh,
care.
it was real.
Well,
It was.
let me
It
say
was
this to
definitely
you.
real, my brother.
Let me ask you this: have you ever written this account down?
No,
Uh,
and it's
you need
that's
to. You
my
need to. You need to record it. Either record it voice wise or write it down. Because here's the interesting thing: is as time goes on, you may lose some. You may lose some facts, and so you need to do that. It's very important that you make a record of this account and what happened and your impressions of it for posterity. Because anything that happens like this, the more detail you have on it, the better. You know.
I agree. I will do that.
You need to, yeah, definitely. And once it's recorded that way, you don't have to worry about time messing with your head and you forgetting
Yeah.
something.
Yes,
So
sir.
it's very important that you do that. So I would advise you to do that, definitely.
Thank you. I will do that. And I
Yeah.
want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell it.
I'm sorry, what?
I was saying thank you for giving me the opportunity
Oh,
to.
oh, not at all. We all like to hear these stories, definitely. We appreciate you coming on and sharing this with us. Definitely. And like I say, this is something that out of the ordinary that happened to you. It shouldn't be lost. Everything like this should be recorded and historically wise, no matter what. We don't want to lose that. And that's very important that you tell your story and that other people, you know, can get something from it as well. So, yeah, we really appreciate you coming on here and sharing this with us. Definitely.
I real quick say,
Yep.
we were
Thank you,
told by
brother.
don't talk about it. People are going to make fun of you. You shouldn't tell anybody; it'll destroy your life. Blah 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 blah. And the older I've got, it really happened. It's been eating at me. And when I first started telling my story on some podcasts, I only said my name was Matt. I never said who I was, my last name, and now I give it. My name's Matt Emsch, and I grew up in Youngstown, Ohio, and happened to me and three of my best friends, and like I said, two of them are gone. Um,
Well, it helps to get this out. Something like that happens to you. The more you tell it, the more you get it out, the better it helps you in the end. And it understand and to assimilate what's happened to you, to that extent. So it's always good to tell it.
yes, sir. I'm happy to be here, and if I can help in any way, I just I don't want anything from it. And maybe a sticker, a T-shirt once in a while, but nothing. I don't want money from anybody. I don't want anything like that, and I just want to help people know what it's like and
You
what.
got to give me your mailing address. Yeah, I need
Sure.
I need a mailing address.
So
Yes.
it's LAKOTA man Lakota man 333 at Gmail.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's on the screen.
I sent you an email. I don't know if you read it yet, but I did send you my story on email. But I'll send you my address.
That's good.
Thank you for
Sounds good. We
it's
appreciate you coming on here, man, and
Sounds good,
sharing this
brother.
with us. We really appreciate it.
absolutely. All right. Well, I'm going to jump back in with everybody else and
Yeah.
be odd.
Thank you,
Great.
Matt. And brother. Okay. Thank you.
Take care. Take care.
Yeah, sorry, I got real quiet when he was describing that because what he's describing is exactly what I would be if I did ceremony. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, so that's why I got real quiet during that. And I wanted to make sure what time frame it was because he said it was an 87.
Mhm.
Um, trying to think of when the last time I did ceremony was. It might have been 87.
Possibility.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't hunting him or any of his friends. They wandered upon it, or it wandered upon them just by sheer chance and coincidence. Matt, if you're still listening, brother, it's nothing to fear. Um, it wasn't meant for you to see or interact with. You weren't the marked target. Um, but yes, and Edna, I think you got it right on the nail head. When she said it was a walker, it sounds exactly like a walker that he described. It sounds exactly like what I would transform into supernaturally to go after the person or persons that I was meant to go after. Um, See, the mentality of a walker is one focused reason for existing, and that is surely revenge. Um,
Mhm.
and it's based on that. It determines if you come across the walker, it may chase you to a point. It may interact with you a little bit, but it's not going to interact so harshly that it affects you physically or that way to where you're harmed physically. Okay, because you're not the intended target. Okay, you're just a mere coincidence of being in the way of it getting to its target. So that being said, I know several people in that area that do the Walker ceremony, and and what I mean by that area, I mean the entire length of the whole Iroquois Confederacy
Mhm.
um, roaming area from upstate New York all the way down into North Carolina. Um,
Right.
it was their range at one time. Um, so yeah, I know several people in that area that do the ceremony, and yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that. He was not the intended target. He was not the intended target. He was him and his buddies were merely in the way of it getting to its intended target, and the dogs. The interaction with the dogs is what threw the whole thing off. Um, And to tell you the truth, if that thing wanted to destroy those dogs with one swipe,
Could
it
have.
could have.
It could
Yes.
have.
So, and if it was meant to harm him in any way, he wouldn't be telling the story right now.
Yeah, he
Um,
wouldn't be here to tell it.
yeah. So, at least have that as a condolence. And we're gonna have I'm gonna talk to Matt, in the background and all that, and we'll have him on another show, and we'll I really I didn't really want to go in depth into this today, and that's why tomorrow I'm glad we're talking about angels because we need to get off this subject because the
Yeah.
more we talk about this subject, the I can feel
Darker. Darker it gets.
yeah I can feel that Yeah, I can feel that coming back to me, and I don't want that to come
You
back
don't
to
want
me.
to do that. You don't want to do that.
That being said, I love everybody out there, everybody in the chat. You have been fantastic. I want to put a special thank you and hello out to Growing Old with Purpose. Thank you for being here. We talk about the weird and the strange and the paranormal and the supernatural and the cryptids and all that. And I just want to let you know, Growing Old with a Purpose, that you are more than welcome to grow old with us. Okay. You once you interact with the family, the Weirdo Warrior pack and family in the chat, you're part of the Weirdo Warriors. Um, we look forward to that. There is a website you can go to on Bonfire to support the channel. You could buy a Weirdo Warrior mug, Weirdo Warriors t-shirts and stuff like that at bonfire.com/store/into the red rabbit hole. And that'll bring you up to the store. And we have like 5 designs of mugs currently right now that you could get that are part of the Weirdo Warrior pack. We just sit around and talk about weird stuff over coffee,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
so that's pretty much what it is. With my background being so dark, and then Dennis's being so prominent in the paranormal, and him being a supernaturalist, um, and so at well versed into the knowledge of the Bible and the biblical aspect of it. I think it's a good combination of having Dennis and I together and having these talks, and if we can help anybody in any way, we're going to do it. Okay.
Oh yeah,
Because
oh
we
yeah.
have both parts of the spectrum covered. So but yeah, my prayers and my love goes out to
As
everybody.
we as we used to say in the South, William, we got you coming and we got you going.
Exactly. So everybody, I want to thank you all for being here. If you can come back tomorrow, we're going to be talking about angels and stuff like that.
Oh yes.
We're going to get off the deep, heavy subject, and we're going to get into the real good subjects of angels.
There you go. Yes, sir.
And that'll be 10 a.m. tomorrow. And I want to thank everybody for being here. It's been 2.5 hours. I think this is the longest our program has ever run. Or if it isn't, it's pretty close. So, but if you can, please like, heart, and share this out with everybody that you know. Subscribe to the channel if you can. Support the channel if you can. On the bottom of the screen, you'll see all the websites, and of course the GoFundMe for me too. But yeah, don't ever forget that what lurks in the dark is there in the daylight too. Okay. And just because you don't see it all the time doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Okay. It
Exactly.
doesn't mean it doesn't exist. You need to walk gently in this world. You need to experience things, but then again, you need to, just because something like this comes across your path, doesn't necessarily mean that it's meant for you to see. Okay. There is a lot of things happen by chance and circumstance. So don't feel like you are the specific one to be threatened when you see something like that. Okay. Don't feel like you need to curl up into a ball and just hide in your home and never come out, because that's not what it's meant to be. Okay. That's not what your life is meant to be. Okay. Please remember, if you can, Subscribe to the channel, follow us. We're here for you. All right. And you all in the chat, you are family. As far as we're concerned, you are family. And we're just here to help everybody out, okay? And to get this stuff off our chest, first off. Secondly, I want to thank Matt for coming on and telling his story. Amazing story, but not the first time I heard that. So I just want you to know, Matt, it's not the first time. So if you want some answers, I might be able to give them to you. Okay. But everybody, God bless you. Aunt Edna, Yolanda, Ozzy Sue, Raven Creek Charms, Tombstone, Scott, everybody out there, Joey Z and Matt, thank you all very much for being here. My lovely wife, Tracy. It's been a very, very, in-depth show. It's taking its toll on me. So I'm going to take my wooden chair butt right now that's been sitting in it for 2.5 hours and try to get focused on tomorrow's show and bring up some positivity.
There you go.
So I will definitely see you all tomorrow morning for coffee right here at 10 a.m. Me and Dennis, and hopefully G will be here tomorrow. I'm not sure. I think he might have had to work. So, but no. You guys,
okay.
Yeah, thank you. And we will see everybody tomorrow. Much love, everybody. 10 a.m. Have your coffee ready. I might be drinking the cinnamon coffee. I don't know. I might be a little wired tomorrow, so just excuse me if I am.
There you go.
Have a good day, everybody.